actually start recording on whatever it's called on YouTube. Hey there, Sensei Mish here. I am here with Dan Anderson. I will show him in a minute, but I want to welcome you to another episode of DojoChat. We are live streaming on Facebook and YouTube. So if you're not subscribing, please subscribe, like, share. If you're going to tune in, or if you're tuning in, sign yourself into the chat, say hi. I'd like to see who's saying hi. And like I said, I have SuperDan Anderson here. Hey Dan, how you doing?
Not bad, not bad. I've taught my classes for the day. I have my coffee. Life is good.
Right on. Well, give us a little bit. I mean, I've known you for 20 years, but some of these people may not know exactly who you are. Can you give yourself a little bit of quick bio?
Okay, quick bio. I began martial arts training in 1966 for my birthday present, 14th birthday, and I started training under Lauren Christensen. And this was in a Korean form of karate called Kung Su, which is a Korean translation of the actual ideograms, karate. And Kung Sudo was basically a Korean form of Shotokan karate. And so anyway, so I made my black belt in 1970. So it took me about, if I remember right, 3 years and 2 months to do this. And then from there, I got heavily into karate competition and went from basically being a decent competitor in the Northwest to a Northwest champion to a decent competitor on the national scene to a national champion. And, I was rated in the top 10 4 consecutive years, Karate Illustrated magazine. And it was in 1980 when I also began training with, Professor Remy in modern harness. And I was a student of his up until his death in 2001. Anyway, at this point in time, if we look at either ranks or that sort of thing, I have 2 10th Dan certificates in karate, one from Mr. Alan Steen and one from Mr. J. Pat Burleson. I have a 9th Dan in modern harness issued by the International Modern Harness Federation Philippines. And, besides that, I think one of the most prestigious also titles that I have is I was given the Joe Louis Eternal Warrior Award, which to me is like being inducted in Cooperstown in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. So there's that. I've been a dojo owner for 36 years here in Gresham, Oregon. Gresham, for any who don't know where that is, that's about 11 miles east of Portland. And so I've done that, and I'm also known for having produced many, many books and DVDs. My first book was American Freestyle Karate, A Guide to Sparring. That came out in 1980. It was the first comprehensive book on the subject of free sparring. And I upgraded and revised that, I believe, a year ago or so. So I basically doubled its size and doubled its input. But I've written also a number of books on karate free sparring, karate self-defense, karate bunkai. I actually even have one that tells you how you can work your kata training to enhance your free fighting and vice versa. So going back and forth. And then the other thing is I've written and produced a number of videos on modern harness and Filipino martial arts. So in the last 54 years, one can say I've been busy.
Well, that is that's pretty impressive. And actually, I have to thank you for coming on today. When I first started this in its original form, you were actually my very first guest.
Yeah, we did it here in the dojo.
Yeah, we actually did it. Yeah, I came to you, and I was totally okay with that. So I thought that was pretty cool. So I thank you for coming on today. In fact, you were mentioning some of the titles that you had produced. So the first book that you and I did together because we met through Danelle Wright, and that was like, I don't know, 20 years ago.
That's back when dinosaurs ruled the earth. we had to dodge triceratops and so forth. Yeah.
So we anyway, I know that you were looking for you were looking to do digital books before that was really a thing, and you didn't really know exactly how to do it. And she's like, "Oh, hey, I got a guy," and then the rest is history. So I'm preparing the dojo for live students because, we can do that now and not get in trouble. And I found this.
Oh my. Oh my. Now that is the first cover of the first Defanging the Snake. My goodness.
Yeah. So, cause you had it in, we released it on CD.
Yep.
On a PDF.
CD-ROM. Yep.
You could get that. And then its matching sister.
Yeah. Advanced Modernist. Yeah. And the funny thing about those two books is that I had them sitting and waiting for the longest time. I had those written years before. But the thing was that Professor Remy was still alive. And despite my SuperDan reputation and having been known as kind of a rebel back in my karate competition days, one of the things that was not very broadly broadcast about me is I have a very strong senior-junior ethic. And so while Professor Remy was still alive, I wasn't going to publish or print or anything that would cut across his income stream. And how much it would have cut across his income stream, I don't know, probably not very much. But even $1 was not ethical for me. So I had those basically sitting in the cooker, so to speak, until he passed away. And then when he passed away, then it was like, okay, good. Now it's time to start putting together these projects and releasing them and so forth. And yeah, that first one, it was interesting because I was only used to hard copy print and publishers that you had to go through. You had to meet their standards. The book could only be so large or so small, etc. And I had heard about this arcane way of doing things: online publishing, digital publishing. And boy, I was up and ready for that. Except, I didn't know how to do it. And like you said, Janelle Wright, we were preparing for a seminar, and she said, well, I know this guy who's really into this. And it was you. And then I learned about, what this magical thing called a PDF file is. And it's funny because those two books, once I learned how to do them, they ended up suffering from enthusiastic amateurism, because I had pictures different sizes, I had different fonts, I had captions italics in size 14 font, while the rest of it's in 12. I mean, in terms of any kind of aesthetic view, like I said, enthusiastic amateurism. And I've revised them since then so that they aren't at least an insult to my eyes, because I've still got copies of the old ones. I look through and I go, oh my, wow, great information. Boy, this just looks like, somebody in the 8th grade did them. So, but yeah, you were, just for everybody else, just letting them know, Mish was like incredibly helpful in probably the first 6 or so books. And the amount of times that I called him, hey, Mish, I've run into this problem. And it'd be something dorky, but he'd be able to walk me through so that I could actually produce these. And then thanks to Amazon, print on demand and so forth, I don't have to jump through all the hoops that the that the major book publishers set out. So if I want 500 pictures in them, great, I can put 500 pictures in them. And as just a back story on that, very, very briefly, the first book, American Freestyle Karate, A Guide to Sparring, we shot over 1,200 pictures for it. And I had them outlined step by step by step, how many pictures needed for how many techniques, etc. And because of the size of the book and the printing cost, that got pared down to 750 photos. And so I've always kept that in the back of my mind, that if I ever got to publish something myself, but it is going to be exactly how I want it. And, okay, any of the mistakes, great, they're mine. Not a problem. So when it comes to proofreading, I have two different people who I have nicknamed my proofreading savages, because they'll send back manuscripts. Oh, and they will pull no punches. Dan, this line doesn't mean anything. What do you mean by this? And I read it and I kind of go, okay, let's see. Let's put on my white belt cap. Oh, wow, that sounds really weird. What did I mean there? I have my black belt cap on. So, oh yeah, I totally know what it means. But anyway, let's see. You and I started this project, I believe, in 2002. So 19 years-ish down the road, I've gotten a whole lot better at it, and very proud of the works that I've done. So.
Yeah, no, you've put out some good work, and I know it wasn't until really COVID hit that that you wanted to still do stuff, but all of your students were like, oh, I can't do it, or my mom won't let me, or I'm COVID fearful, and so I remember you calling me up and was like, hey, I need a filming buddy. I was like, sure. So, okay, which one did we first work on? That was,
oh, geez. I think it was the Essence of Tappy Tappy video series. And it's funny. It's funny because when the COVID, when the pandemic hit, and it was a year ago on my daughter's birthday, on your son's birthday, March 11th, that was officially announced that we're in the midst of a pandemic. Then President Trump gave it over to all the governors as to what to do about it. So pretty much everybody across the board had this 2-week secure at home thing, which means the dojos emptied out.
right.
Whammo, the dojos emptied out. And luckily enough, one of my good buddies is a fellow by the name of Brandon Beliso. And Brandon is really on top of the latest technology and different ways of teaching and so forth. And he was the one that I found out about Zoom from. And kind of a funny story is that, Brandon is pushing Zoom, et cetera. And I'm being kind of an old curmudgeon. I'm not going to teach online. We're going to have the dojo open. We're going to have the students here. Growl, growl, growl. And then my wife, Marie, finally one day is in the middle of my growling, didn't quite yell, but it was a strong communication. Dan, what have you got against that? And I'm kind of like, and those of us who are married, we know that tone of voice.
Absolutely.
And so it was like, okay, well, let's look into this. And so I did a weekend crash course with my team, how to set up the meetings, how to run the meetings, et cetera, et cetera. And right after that weekend, Governor Brown issued the 2-week stay at home, the secured home thing, which turned into basically a 2-month hiatus on any kind of training in the dojo. Well, luckily I had a head start. I communicated with all my students and said, okay, we are going virtual. We're going online. Here are the days for the class lessons. Here are the times for the class lessons. Here are the time for the private lessons. Private lessons are free. So you can get in extra training time and so forth. And then I waited for all the students to quit. And the fascinating thing was 70% of the students not only stuck with it, but were happy that I was willing to go the extra mile. And
right on.
And so the dojo stayed open. And so for the first 2 months, middle of March into the middle of May, what occurred was I was in the dojo 6 days a week, right exactly in this spot. So you see in the background all my stuff, sitting at this table teaching class, which I never expected ever in my life to do. But you do what you got to do, and I figured it out and so forth. And then So do you mind if I continue on with this story a little bit, because
Oh
it's
yeah,
germane to whatever? Yeah. Okay.
yeah, go.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So the thing was is that in the middle of May, Governor Brown issued phase 1 requirements, restrictions, and part of this was karate, taekwondo, MMA schools could not open its doors because of the physical contact and physical contact factor. And my first thought was, well, okay, Governor Brown, what is she? She is a professional politician. Okay, good. So what is she not? She's not a martial artist. Okay. So what I need to do is I need to educate, not argue, but educate Salem, our state capital, on the various ways that one can train without making the physical contact and being able to keep the 6 foot social distancing rule. So I sent this via our Chamber of Commerce CEO, Gresham Chamber of Commerce CEO, Lynn Snodgrass, and I sent it to Salem, and it was a 2-page letter, and it outlined, and I bullet pointed like 11 different ways that we could train and still not make the physical contact, still be safe. And then I included our protocols for even walking in the door, right? And I still have the protocols in place. You cannot cross the line of the door without a mask, without a temperature scan. You walk in the door, good, shoes and socks off, we're sanitized. And then I'm gonna scoot just a little bit, because if you look in the background, you can see different colored squares. There, I have to do this backwards to me. There's the yellow square, and then there is the red square. Now, if you look way over here, okay, you can see a dot. That's in the middle of the square. So what I've got is I've got a slot for 19 people to be in the dojo, all at the same time, in their squares, on their dots, and we're separated by the 6 foot social distancing rule. Anyway, I sent this all down, and we got an answer back in 3 hours. I mean, down back 3 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, the answer was, you're open. Boom.
Yay.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so the thing was is that, where a lot of people were complaining and upset, I was upset, but the thing is that, going to war with the state capital, I knew already was not going to be productive. It would be just lumping myself in with a lot of other businesses who were being hit and hurt. And instead it was like, okay, what you understand about martial arts comes from Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, and Ultimate Fighting Championships. And that is like maybe this much of martial arts.
Yeah.
So the thing is, educate rather than agitate. I just came up with that now. I like that. Educate rather than agitate. And boom, dojo was open. So my doors have been open since middle of May, and my protocols are the same. I've probably got 25-ish to 30% of my students still going virtual. I have some people who are being extremely careful. Okay, no harm, no foul. I have some parents who are immune deficient, so they're not going to bring their kids in because of the possibility they bring it back and they get infected and so forth. No harm, no foul. My thing here is instruct in martial arts, do the best I can, but at the same time, something that I learned from both Brandon Beliso, Melody Johnson, and Randy Reed is service the students, service the clientele, so to speak. So this is part of my new service model. And, here's a funny thing. As of March 11th, 2021, my enrollment was up over March 11th, 2020 last year. So I actually grew during the pandemic rather than bottomed out. So it worked out.
That's cool. Now, do you know if some of those students that you grew from, do you know if, are you aware of those students coming in from other dojos that weren't able to adapt?
No, I haven't had anybody who previously trained. What I've got is I've got parents who are feeling more and more, I think, confident in the guidelines that are set out, and more relaxed, because the initial scare or the initial hysteria was incredible. You would have thought the world was coming to an end.
Right.
And, and the thing about that is that, I'm not going to go into politics or the press or the this, that, or the next thing. The primary thing was, in my estimation, was the unknown factor. The difference between, let's say, okay, the flu epidemic. Okay, we've had a number of flu epidemics. So we've got kind of an idea of protocol of what to do. Well, COVID-19, first time this type of epidemic broke out. So there was a lot of unknowns. There wasn't even a vaccination. There's 3 vaccinations right now. Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. Well, March 11th, we didn't have that. So there was a lot of unknown. And unfortunately, with unknown comes in uncertainty. What follows on the heels of uncertainty? Fear. So unknown, uncertain, and then fear. And this fear just kind of went, well, here we are 1 year down the road. Everybody's used to the protocols. There is more certainty, I believe, amongst the populace. So people are coming out and starting to enroll, starting to train. They see my facilities, they see the boxes, they see the signs on the window, the step-by-step that you have to do to come in. They see me shielded, or my team with the thermometer going, making sure everybody's cool. And I believe that aspect has actually been breeding confidence. So, I haven't had anybody that's come in from other schools. I think probably people that were trained in other schools are probably going back to their schools. I mean, that's their premier orientation. This is what they first did. So that's what they're going to be familiar with.
Right. Right on. No, that's, it's funny because I'd been set up for virtual forever. I mean, I had put up a TV and had the computer and had all this kind of stuff set up. But it was, of course I didn't have any students. Actually, I had a couple, but they were private students, but they were like, well, no, we just don't want to do virtual. And it's like, are you sure? Like it's like, this will be new to me. We can work this out. But yeah.
Well, yeah, I had the same thing in, like I said, I retained 70% of my students. Well, we had 30% that didn't want to go virtual. Yeah. And for whatever reason, because I really didn't, sit down and email each one of them and query why. It was just, okay, well, they don't want to do it. The ones that do want to do it, okay, let's get in there. Let's service these guys really, right from the get-go. I don't think anybody missed a class that wanted to stay on. But yeah, there's some people that didn't want to do virtual. I mean, if you look at, say, this is the fascinating thing, because I'm not a student of anybody else at this point in time. So I never had to stand in front of a screen and go 1, 2, 1, 2, or good the stick work, 1, 2, 1, 2, etc. The discipline behind that actually is pretty intense, because what have you got at home? You have every available means of distraction at your disposal. You've got books, you've got video, you've got Game Boy, you've got this, and that to pull you away from training for that half hour, 40 minutes. So anybody out there who has been training virtually, I will go put on a hat just to take my hat off to you, because that is discipline. That is really sticking with it. And I have been extremely fortunate. I've got a number of students I haven't seen on the mats here in the school for a year. 365 days plus. and they're still at it. Wow. What discipline, what, that's oh gosh, I can't think of the word. That's a tribute to them for their dedication, and I take it as a slight pat on the back that's a tribute to me for being able to actually service them that way. So anyway, sorry I cut you off, but
yeah, no worries. I mean, I think that goes into the relationship that you created with those students.
And here's the funny thing. Yeah, Brandon Beliso talks about
exactly. I was going to mention.
I don't want students. I want relationships.
Yeah.
And I've told Brandon this. I told you this in private conversation. I'll go public with this. I thought that was like, yeah, that and let's go hug a tree. That's kind of like new age tree hugging and stuff. Airy fairy. I want relationship. I want relationships with my guys. Well, the fascinating thing is that I didn't realize that the manner in which I teach, the manner in which I relate to the students and to the parents, I had created relationships. And this became, as a parent, as a pie in the face when my 70% stayed with me, and I'm thinking, wow, this is not tree hugging stuff. I just don't talk about creating relationships with students, but I had actually created relationships. And now I look at that in a totally different light. One of the things that is so beautiful about the human species is our ability to change our minds, to change our viewpoints. We're not stuck in a rut. It's like my most recent change of viewpoint on how Remy Presses taught, which we can get into that if we happen to remember this. But thinking about creating relationships. Originally I thought, like I said, I'll go out and hug a tree when I'm done, and hopefully I won't get any sap on myself. But instead, it was like, wow, this is exactly what I've done, because I haven't been the Cobra Kai type of sensei.
Yeah.
No mercy, strike hard. Crunch the guy. Blah blah blah. You follow my commands because I'm Sergeant Anderson of the Marine Corps. But that's what's kept my dojo alive. And I tell you, my gratitude, another word that Brandon uses a lot, but my gratitude goes out to all my guys that have stuck with me. So, yeah.
Well, Carl Kanthak chimed in. He says, it's commitment.
Yeah.
It's all.
Yeah. And it's commitment on both sides. And the fascinating thing is that, unfortunately in this era, Y2K, one of the things, if you want to hear me go on a rant about, is that the difference of students when I first started teaching in 1969 and students now, and the culture, the culture of the students in 1969, 1970, 75, and so forth, was people tended to get a lot more committed to something than they do now. Now it's it's what I call the MTV mentality. You get this very fast skip to this, all these jump cuts, and the jump cuts of what one does. I'll do karate for a couple of months. Now I'll play soccer. Now I'll play full contact badminton. And now I'm going to go back to Minecraft. You don't feel that, you don't get that much in the way of commitment. And so the guys that have stuck with me, wow, Carl's absolutely right. It's commitment. They've decided to commit to this. They've decided to commit to me, and I have made the decision to commit to them. So it's this really good mutual thing that goes back and forth, and it's nice. Yeah.
So circling around back to you mentioning about Remy.
Yes, sir.
About learning to appreciate the way that he taught.
It's not appreciate the way that he taught. It's getting a different viewpoint. It's shifting my viewpoint on it, because
shifting your viewpoint.
Over the years, I've complained about how Remy taught. Professor Remy didn't teach in the manner that I like to learn. Now, this is a far more accurate statement. I like to learn A, B, C, D, get the technique, tell me the principle so that I can then create my own techniques. Robert W. Smith, who's very well-known author on martial arts books, he said, if you give me one technique, I will learn one technique. If you give me one principle, I'll create 1,000 techniques.
Right.
And, so Jesse Enkamp, unfortunately for me, has stolen the term, the karate nerd. So I will use the term either the karate geek, or as I like to call it, the warrior scholar. I might take that, but
like
some people may think I'm high, they may think it's highfalutin, but the thing is that, Professor Remy didn't teach in the manner that I like to learn. Now, I did a post up on Facebook recently, which I thought the answers were interesting, because I asked, okay, good. So what makes the difference in a Filipino martial art and, let's say, a Filipino American martial art culturally? And not the techniques, because you have stick and knife, you have double knife, etc. But what is the cultural viewpoint? And the fascinating thing, there's two things that I got that were like the common denominators. And this is in research for a different book that I'm doing, because I've always got projects coming out to my ears.
Right.
But one was survival, and the other was the either family or tribal art. Now, let me cross-reference this with something that Paulo Rubio posted. And Paulo had a film snippet of talking to one of his favorite teachers. One of his favorite teachers had said, and this is a paraphrase or a misquote, but what he stated was that, in his area, Filipino martial arts was not meant to be taught, let's say, in a school in a regimented fashion. What you taught your family. You taught your family to survive. Mm-hmm. And you taught them how to protect themselves. Okay, so when I look at Professor Remy's teaching, okay, now we're going down around to my change of viewpoint. He taught in a hybrid tribal sense. Okay, he did not lay down a curriculum of, okay, first you learn the 12 basic strikes. Now you learn the 12 basic blocks. Now you learn the block check counter. Now you learn the disarms. Now you learn the, okay, and here it is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Number one, he taught by seminar method. And I've always described the seminar method as you take a fistful of confetti, you fire it in the air, it flutters down, and whatever sticks to you, you left with, which means right. he really did a broad shoot during, especially his weekend camps. He did a broad shoot during his weekend camps. And in one of my books, I published my 7 or 8 pages of notes as an appendix, of one of his weekend camps. But what he was doing, and one of the other things is that, one of the things that people have mentioned in the Philippines is that quite often you showed up and the teacher taught what he wanted to teach that day. And did it follow a progression? No, today we're doing this. And so Professor Remy did a half and half in which he taught to a large group of people, okay, seminar fashion, but he also taught what he wanted to teach, which was closer to traditional Filipino fashion, as opposed to American fashion, where we follow the American education system as an example. Good. Here's your first grade, your yellow belt. Here's your second grade, your orange belt. Here's your third grade. Bing, 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 bing. And everything is based on the preceding, so I can appreciate, or I can understand how Professor Remy taught, and for lack of a better term, complain about it less.
Okay.
When I have it put in, okay, he taught in a semi-traditional Filipino fashion, which was, okay, I'll teach what I want that day. But he taught a large group of people, which is more modern. But also, he didn't teach in the manner in which I like to learn. And now we've got it, okay, separated out as to, okay, this is my viewpoint, this is his viewpoint, and I come to an understanding on it. So, and that was actually, I'll tell you, be really honest, that was recent. That's like within the last month. Yeah, and so like I said, the lovely thing about the human species is our ability to change our minds. And so I've got a better understanding of what he did, how he did it, and I'll piss and moan less. You know? I'll still be outspoken, but I'll piss and moan less. How's that?
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, now is this new understanding, has this kind of come about as you've been putting together what you call the Modern Arnists archival series?
No, actually, it has come about from the topic of my next book, which is tentatively titled Modern Arnists, An American View.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's one of my projects it's not on the back burner, but this is going to take a little bit more research because I'm researching into the history of Professor Remy. So what I've got is I've got 3 different interviews that I'm pulling data from, and these are spoken interviews. These are not written ones. You know, the written ones, I've got a wealth of stuff, you know, from the magazines and so forth, where people have done interviews or stories on Professor Remy. But I've got I've got 2 of Kelly Warden's On the Edge interviews, which he's graciously allowed me to use as research material. I have a 2-disc, so it's like 2 45-minute slots that Gabi Roloff, who was a master of Tappy Tappy in Germany, she conducted an interview, and I got those from Dieter, and I cleaned up the audio so I can understand it. I have a videotape coming to me, and I used to have not the videotape, compact disc, but I used to have a videotape that Joe Ribello, who is known as Kempo Joe on the East Coast, had videoed of Professor Remy. And so I've got a DVD coming of that. And those are going to be my first areas where I can really get into and cull and go over the history of Professor Remy. Then I've got a couple of other sources that also have points in history. There's one, Dieter Knudel, who's also a Datu and a Modern Artist 10th Dan. He put together a booklet in 2007 when we taught over in Germany at the 50th anniversary of the founding of Modern Artists. Well, he's got a lot of old guys in there. Romy Lysandra talking about what Professor Remy did. Then there's, Max Palin, there we go. I was going to forget his name here. You know, Max Palin talking about when Professor Remy came over first from the Philippines into the States. You know, so he's here 1975. That predates me by 4 to 5 years. Yeah. So there's a lot of this history that I want to go into, and then from there, I want to go into an American view, or maybe I have to put an apostrophe, yes, an American's view, meaning my view, a Dan perspective, so to speak, of where modern artists has gone since Professor Remy's passing. You know, because it's what, 2022 now, is 2001. It will be 21 years, if my math is correct. Don't quote me on my math. Don't ever quote me on my math. But it's been 2 decades since the passing of Professor Remy. And where is modern artists now? How have we grown? How have we diverged, et cetera? What kind of art has it turned into? What kind of art was it when it came to the United States, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And, it's something that, from my point of view, it's, again, a tribute to my teacher. Mm-hmm. You know, if I hadn't met Professor Remy, I'd probably still be a karate jock with bad joints. But learning artists from Professor Remy, learning how to flow, learning how to move fluidly, and so forth, has preserved my body. I do not move like a 68-year-old man who's been had multiple knee and elbow and shoulder injuries, et cetera, et cetera. Right. I learned how to move with the flow 40 years ago, and I'll surprise people with, "Oh, you're 68." "Yeah, I'm 68." "Wow, you don't look 68." "Yeah, you got to see me when I get out of bed in the morning." "Oh, I'm tired." But it's like it's a tribute to my teacher, and also I think it will be a clarification of what some people have thought, but they haven't really spoken. And again, I'll get into that into the book. You know, there are certain cards I'm keeping very, very close to my chest at this point in time.
Okay.
But you'll see it when you see the book. And it's, you know, if it doesn't sell, okay, well, there you go. But I will have put it out. You know,
Right.
that's with all my materials if I put it out. Now, my archive series, since you asked this viewpoint, the archive series, again, is, you know, we go back and we look at the difference in how Dan likes to learn and the difference in how Professor Remy taught. Now, there is a wealth of material of what Professor Remy did. He did his initial set of videotapes, what I call the Jim and Judy clap tapes, okay? They produced them. There's 7 videos there. Black Belt Magazine, he did 3 videos there. There's another that are nicknamed the Victoria tapes, okay? These are the last batch that he did, and I think there are 14-ish of videos that Professor Remy did. And then George Denson, he did he produced 2 tapes into DVDs, the Sinawali seminar. Young Remy, Remy Jr. has produced, I've got 3 of them. I think he's produced 4 that have been culled from seminar videos that other people shot. I call them the bootleg tapes. There's one that I issued recently that was an aborted project from Atlanta. And I, you know, put that up on my website as a free download. Why? Well, because it was never issued. And so I'm not going to charge for it, for crying out loud, but
Right.
he's got some stuff on her. But the common denominator on this is that, again, all the material is, you know, shotgunned across a tremendous amount of video material. And where is it? Well, where can you find the disarms? I don't know. There's not the disarms tape. Well, what about all the takedowns? There's not the takedowns tape. Okay, well, what about Sinawali? Let's see. Oh yeah, tape 2, etc. Right. So
Right.
the thing is that you know, my archive material is that I look at, number one, you know, to catalog everything that Professor Remy taught. Good luck, Uncle Buck, because he taught so much that, example, what he taught in Portland in May of 1985 might be different than what he taught in Buffalo in June of 1985. You know, because one of the things about Professor Remy was he was always learning, always innovating, always adding this, adding that, subtracting this, subtracting that while he was learning and teaching. So to make a catalog of everything is, you know, good luck. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But there are certain common themes, certain common things that he did teach in Portland, in Florida, in Buffalo, in Houston, in Detroit. And this is what I've concentrated on, except put them in a particular package. Okay. Right. Such as the basics of empty hands. Good. Basics of empty hands. The classical styles. Good. The classical styles. The essence of tappy tappy. Good. The tappy tappy. And so the archival series basically consists of certain videos and certain books that cover a huge portion of the art, and you can find certain things in one thing. You know, if you want empty hand and cane locks, good. There's the Ford video set and then the book Trancata. If you want to learn the años, empty hand or the cane años, good. There's the book Labanan Solo with the accompanying video, and then also the año applications 6 DVD set. You know, they are all in one slot. You can go, that's the one I need to look at because it says so on the label. Right. So it's to make it easier for everybody. And again, these are all coming from a Dan perspective. So the manner in which I do them might be a hair different than the way that, let's say, Bruce Chu or Roland Rivera or Brian Zawolinsky or Doug Pierre or any of the other long-term students of Professor Remy. What I try and do is I try and replicate the ease of which he applied. So there's certain principles that I go by. And from the reports I've gotten back from people who have bought the books and DVDs, I'm on the right track. So yay. But anyway, I've got 2 more series that I need to finish up. One is Espada y Daga, or what I call the video series Dos Manos, which means 2 hands, which means, okay, for me, weapons in 2 hands. So you've got stick and dagger, and then you've got double stick. So that's one. And the other one is what I nickname Remy's secret weapon, which is all left hand based. And everybody knew Professor Remy was right-handed. I mean, was taught right-handed, and he taught some stuff left-handed. But this is for a right-hander's view, a left-hand orientation. And this is, again, the Dan perspective. And I've got left-handed stuff scattered all through my video materials. Okay, this one is going to be left-handed stuff all in one resource. So once I'm done with those, I pretty much covered the breadth of what Professor Remy taught within a Dan perspective. And yes, there's going to be missing techniques, but you know, a bunch of it is better than none of it. So,
right on.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I've been an Uki for the last couple projects, so that's been fun.
Good, because being an Uki for Professor Prasis was an honor, but it was never fun. In fact, my running joke is he would, oh yes, and there are so many things that you can do. And my thought balloon is like, yes, you could let go. This hurts. But anyway.
Well, I mean, we did come close to gutting me that one day.
It's only a flesh wound.
It's only a flesh wound. Yeah, so that was pretty funny. I walk in, and what series were you doing on that one? Was that the
that was the classical? It was demonstrating the difference between an impact weapon and a bladed weapon.
Yeah. So I remember I walk in, and you've like, okay, so I was taking a shower this morning, and I had an idea.
That's where some of my best ideas come from, is in the shower.
I was like, okay. And he goes, no, just humor me. Just hear me out. And then you can, so we talked.
And I also said, Bram's going to kill me for this one.
Yeah, of course. We had to put that in. So we, the idea, put me in a body or a chest pad with a, with a pool noodle taped on the front, and then you would cut to show how easy it would be to cut from a short distance. And I remember us practicing, you're like, okay, you stand here, I stand here. And you reached out and you were like, okay, this is, it's like, okay, this is the distance I need to be from. I was like, okay, cool. I feel comfortable. Yes. I'm thinking the entire time, if Bram was here, he'd be like, you guys are stupid. Like, why are you even doing this?
That would be mild. He would be adamant. I would have to send him out for coffee and video it quickly while he was getting coffee and coming back. Yeah.
And so when we got in front of the camera, you were like, I was wondering when you were going to step back a little bit, because you were a little bit close, and you just start talking, and then it's just like swipe. And I was like, oh shit.
Now the thing you left out for the audience is, while I'm talking, you put your hands in your pocket, your forearms behind the chest pad, and nudged it forwards.
True. Yes, I did do that. But I also did that when we were practicing, or,
I didn't see that
doing the timing. So I was like, okay, but yeah. And then you ended up cutting not only through the pool noodle, but also the chest protector.
Well, there was a tiny bit left. There was about 1/8 of an inch left. I don't know what you're complaining about. I didn't cut your shirt, okay?
No, yeah, that's. I didn't get cut. The shirt didn't get
Yes.
cut. But yeah, so did you end up sending that video to Bram?
Well, I sent it to Bram and Brian, and Bram was very he was very nice to me, you know, because I thought he was going to light me up.
Yeah.
And I think Brian just did like an LOL or something like that. But yeah, he did a very, very polite lecture, and it was all nice and fine. I thought he was going to chew my butt up one side and down the other and so forth.
He was nice to me. I mean, we laughed about it. He was just like, he's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you guys are just idiots.
Oh, well, like you said, it's only a flesh wound, and I've got tape over the body pad, so it's all right.
Yeah.
It's okay.
There's no blood. There's a picture of the pad out there somewhere, but there's no blood, which is a good thing.
I think it's a wonderful thing.
Okay. So kind of taking a step back, I don't know, what was it? You said you started training in 80 or 81?
Modern Arness in Modern Arness in 1980. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I met Professor Remy in 79 and then started training in 80. Go ahead.
Okay. So I know you met him through Fred King. He kind of introduced you.
Yes.
But what was it that kind of spoke to you that said, this is what I need to learn next? This is, you know.
Okay. Well, what I'll do is I'll back up to my aha moment with Professor Remy and then shoot forward. And when I met him, you know, and I'll skip the whole prelude story because I've told it so many times it's not even really funny to me anymore. But he was doing he was talking to me about, you know, somebody who tried to, you know, mug him in the subway in New York, and he had me grab his wrist, and he did just a very simple walk away move, where a walk away and release, where you raise your arm up, and then you go under your arm, that hand peels from the grip and so forth. And I had been, you know, a national competitor for a good number of years, and I'd seen all kinds of confidence. You know, I've seen guys like Jeff Smith walk in the door and own the entire space. You know, I mean, just by walking in the door. I've seen others who have had blustery, you know, they're building up themselves, et cetera. I've seen people with no confidence. I've seen people with calm, serene confidence and so forth. And the thing that I spotted in him was that when he executed the move, he executed it in such a fashion that it never occurred to him that it wouldn't work. And I had never experienced that before with anybody. And I thought, oh boy, okay, I'm going to keep my eyes on him. So anyway, so we go to, you know, we fast forward about 4 to 5 months or something like that. And he's doing a weekend camp, one that Professor Leonard Trigg had promoted here in Portland. So I go to it, and the thing that I liked about it was that first thing was the implement that we were using was not an Okinawan implement. So it wasn't an nunchaku, it wasn't a sai, it wasn't a 6-foot long bow staff. It was just this simple little stick. And then what he started doing was translating the stick actions into empty hands. And there were a lot of cross references between what he did with the stick and what he did with the empty hand. And it was all simply applied, you know. So the thing was you didn't have to get into any, you know, ornate stances, or you didn't have to do breathing exercises and it was one of those things like my very first karate lesson when I was 14 years old. It just bit. And I think the main concept that I liked was, number one, was the flow. And the second thing, which really impressed me at that point in time, was when he did disarms, which became, you know, a fetish of mine for a number of years. When he did disarms, it was like you had the stick, then you didn't have the stick. And where was the tugging and the yanking and the force and so forth? It wasn't. It was like a hot knife through butter. And I was really fascinated by that. And I was fascinated by the flow. And it just kind of went from there. And like I said, I was bit. And so I trained it. My ex-wife and I, we did, we trained it all the time. And, there's some people that will talk about, well, gosh, this is your secondary art, or the primary art that you teach in your school is karate or whatever, implying that the arnis was either a lesser art, or you didn't train as hard as they did, or.
Right.
And what people like that who say that, what they don't understand is what kind of a maniac that I am. I am in those 1%, maybe if it's that many, of when you latch onto something, you really latch onto it hard. And so my ex-wife and I trained in it. Then we started a class in it. We would train in between classes. Every time Professor Remy came to town, we always got private lessons where, because he usually at that point in time spent about a week in town. And I remember one time, Monday through Friday after work, wham, I'd head over to Fred King's place, because that's where the professor was. And he was conducting an hour and a half, 2.5 hour private sessions. So, I got very intensely into it. And first it was an art that, it was a different art. It was different than my karate. So it could, go like this with my karate training. But what I didn't realize at the time was that this was something that was going to give me martial longevity. I'm, as I mentioned earlier, I'm 68 years old. And with the exception of the head high kicking that I used to do back when I was a kid, I move fairly smoothly. I don't have the injuries that many other long-term ballistic-based martial artists do.
Right.
I attribute all this to the arnis training. I mean, all of it to the arnis training. So, long-winded answer to what got me as far as the arnis goes. It was the flow, and it was his ability to disarm, and then the simplicity with which one could take and apply it. But then after that, it was like, boy, intense desire. So.
Right on.
Yeah.
So where do you see yourself from here? I mean, you're 68, so that's basically retirement. You've got a couple 10th dans. And I know we've known each other for a long time. You've always got different projects going on, but I don't know what do you see your future like?
Oh boy, that's interesting. Right now, my wife won't let me retire. So doesn't matter if I'm a 10th Dan or not. We know who outranks who.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
and all of us long-term martial artists, we know this. The wife always outranks us.
True.
Where I see myself is when COVID lets up. Is one of the things I love traveling and teaching. So I'm looking at more of a seminar circuit, etc. I will get back to getting my team to running the bulk of what happens in the martial arts here. And it is, the key thing or the underlying thread that starts from American freestyle karate, a guide to sparring, all the way to my most latest book, my most latest DVD is how can I make it easier for somebody else to understand than it was for me? And that's the reason behind my projects. Mm-hmm. So when I look at, let's say, teaching seminars, which I love teaching seminars, because it's one thing to teach your own students. They are already relying on you. They already have faith in you. It's easy to mold these guys into your line of thinking.
Right.
But teaching somebody who doesn't know you, who is willing to, okay, good, I'm going to spend an hour and a half or 2 hours listening to this bald guy. And is it going to make sense? My goodness, I most certainly hope so. Okay, to communicate my principles, my tactics, my strategies, different ways of making things either easier or more understandable. that's where the rubber meets the road. And so far, I've done fairly well at it, done pretty well at it. So this is what I look at, my lack of a better term, life's goal in the martial arts is that if you and I are together, are you going to leave with an easier and better understanding of that which we covered than before we met? And my materials, that's the idea. That was the thing that really spurred on my very first book. And I've gotten so many accolades on, wow, this is, I understand free fighting better. People will send me pictures of their old beat up books because they've gone through them so many times. This changed my sparring. I just wanted to let you know that. And so forth. Well, it's the same with the Filipino martial arts materials, where I've gotten other people writing, geez, what you do is so easy to understand. I understand this better. And that's the key. I understand it better. So until I fully retire, and who knows, I'm kind of adopting the viewpoint of the warrior scholar, the scholar in that, can I explain things easier? Can I explain them in such a fashion that anybody, not just my students who understand my terminology, but can I do terminology? Can I do training methods or learning methods so the other person can understand them? And this is, one of the reasons why the archival series, and one of the reasons why, so many books, why am I writing a book on this, that, and the next thing? Well, in my opinion, it either A, hasn't been written, it can be more easily understood, and for whatever reason, I'm pretty good at adopting the white belt mind when I write with the black belt mind. So I don't write over the top of the heads. Can somebody understand, and so forth. I think one of the Bram Frank, he always says this. He goes, I tell people, people will get, well, gosh, why don't you write about this? Why don't you video this? And he'll always answer, Dan's already done the work. He spared me the work of writing about this, so I don't have to read Dan's book. Yeah. And one of the interesting ones is that, when we get into something which deals in his own creation, his modular system, my DVD and book set called Steel Meets Flesh covers not only his modular system, which I don't teach much in his modular system, but how does that all transfer to empty hand application? Mm-hmm. I mean, Bram can do this backwards in his sleep, but he'd never written about it.
Right.
I asked him, I said, hey, this is a project I want to do. He says, go ahead. You're saving me the work. So, I've gotten enough accolades and enough reports that what I've been doing has been making their lives and their arts easier. So at the moment, this is what I plan on doing. I'm looking near future rather than long-term future. Longer term future, where I sure hope things lighten up so that I can go to the FMA festival in 2022, and to have another trip to the Philippines that was every bit as good as the one in 2006. So that's it. It's a semi-answer and almost a no answer, because in a way it's sort of like, well, I don't know. My wife won't let me retire, so that means I'm still to be teaching at the school, and I'm up to my ears in projects. So there you go. So
right on. Well,
yeah.
Look forward to playing with you and seeing what you put out. Well, when you mentioned the Filipino Martial Arts Festival in the Philippines, yes, mm-hmm. if the Philippines are open up, I'm going as well. I talked to Bram. Of course, he's going because he family there. But
Bram's made a number of trips there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is Dieter.
Yeah. So, but I figure, don't know exactly when the next chance I'd have. So the next chance I have, I'm going.
Good. And
And
one of the things that I think will be a really, really pleasant surprise is that uh, the welcoming that I received, because I was thinking, okay, Far East, you don't get a whole lot paler than me. And going back to do Filipino martial arts in the homeland, so you're going to have a white boy who's going to be teaching several classes, et cetera. And is this going to turn into a WWE SmackDown or exactly what? I really didn't know.
right.
When I went over there, it was as if we were cousins that hadn't seen each other in a long time. I mean, the homecoming was wonderful. Gosh, there's a word that I'm looking for that I can't think of right at the moment. But it was family greeting family. I mean, it was terrific, and that was in the Remy Presses Memorial Camp. Then we did that for a week, and then the following week we did the FMA Festival, which had a lot of different instructors.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the hospitality, the brotherhood, the accepting one as a student of the Filipino martial arts, whether you're doing modern arnis or Calese Destrissimo or Doce Pares or any of the other systems, it was terrific. So when you go there, and we do both the Professor Remy camp and the FMA festival, you're gonna come back with really, really good smiles and very, very good memories. I can almost guarantee that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I told my wife, in fact, last week when
You asked your wife, you pleaded with your wife. I know your wife. You didn't tell her nothing.
well, after you and I had talked about it last weekend, and I had talked to Bram, I don't know if it was the same day or next day or whatever, but I told her, I was like, look, I said, I really, really want to do this. I was like, it's going to happen hopefully next year around this time frame. Bram and I talked about potential costs. So this is how much it's going to cost for me to go. And she just kind of looked at me like, I was like, okay, what does that mean? She's like, is that stupid decision? She's like, I don't care. Just go. So,
Ooh.
Yeah. So
Good.
Yeah.
Good. She understands.
Yeah.
She understands the martial arts mind. Yeah. I've mentioned to Marie about wanting to go again. I haven't talked to her about going in 2022. That's on the list, as well as my spider ride to Connecticut camp. So those are on the list when she comes back.
Just have like a bullet point. We need to talk.
Sort of. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's like, here, sit down first. Do you need some, get her favorite, take her out to dinner, her favorite drink,
butter, she'll know everything's up. She'll know something's up.
Butter her up. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So if somebody wants to buy any of your products, how would they do that?
Well, I've got a website. I mean, you can go on Amazon and find any of my books. However, if you really want to make me happy, then you go to my website, and it's called SuperDan Online Library. www.superdanonlinelibrary.com. And I have them in different categories, where if you want to buy books or if you want to buy downloads, karate, FMA stuff. I have certain bundles that, if you want to buy X amount, you can get a price reduction and so forth. And I've got pretty much everything somebody might want to choose from as far as either karate or FMA goes. So, and it's being added to all the time. So if somebody want to purchase anything, they can go to SuperDan Online Library.
So something else, like we talked about this November of, I don't know what year it was, episode number 1. But at the time you were basically talking about, you had not really had named the project, but essentially it was your academy. Is that still online?
Yeah, SuperDan Online Academy. boy, the timing of that was really interesting because up until then, you had, like, let's say the Gracie Academy, which is very, very well structured.
Yeah.
And what I had done was I'd put on a number of online lessons, actually, in a number of different categories. We had karate free sparring, we had Filipino martial arts, we had the Bram's modular system, and then we had several guest instructors who taught. Tim Gus was teaching kickboxing basics. We have Jeff Berger doing Jiu-Jitsu Houdini. So escapes from ground actions and so forth. And it went up. It got fully up about 1 month before COVID hit. Then COVID hits. And the next thing you know is that everybody and their mother is getting into online training. So now it is no longer a specialty niche, and I'm competing with everybody.
Right.
So it's up there. It's called the SuperDan Online Academy, and I have several people going on that, but it's an ongoing concern. But is it filled with tons of students? No. What seems to be more of the going concern is actually the books and the DVDs, where somebody wants it in their hot little hands. Right. And they're either watching it or they're reading it, which is okay. No harm, no foul. You never know what, for lack of a better term, you never know quite what the consumer wants until the consumer starts buying it. So,
right.
Yeah.
But regardless, you still have, whether it's, virtual access or, physical DVD or paper book, or even just downloading the pre-done videos. There's something out there for everybody.
Oh yeah. There's between the two, there is a ton of material. The SuperDan Online Academy is a subscription-based thing, so that you pay X amount a month, and it's not expensive. You have 24/7 access. Hey, Ramos, thank you very much, sir. You have access to any one of the programs, and then if you go through the library, okay, you've got your hard copy books, you've got your hard DVDs, you've got your video downloads, you've got your PDF downloads, and so forth. So, I've tried to make it as easy as possible for anybody around the planet to be able to access, any of my materials. And, when I say anywhere around the planet, I mean, honest, anywhere around the planet. I've got a couple of things going out in the United States right now, and then I've got another thing going out to Switzerland. I've got a guy who emailed me today, says, do you ship to Canada? Yes, I do ship to Canada. Do you, I've got followers in Australia. I've got followers all over Europe. I've got followers in Hong Kong, honest to Pete, Hong Kong.
Wow.
And so, so I try and make it something that anybody can have access to. And, I try and make my services as good as possible.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, we're kind of coming to the end of our time.
Okay.
Again, I thank you for coming on, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning. That's right. Let me mention a couple of things here.
Oh, absolutely.
Just to whet people's tastes. And I mentioned that what I've got is, I'm finishing up the Dos Manos project, the two-handed weapons, and then also into left-hand orientation, Remy's secret weapon. But there's several other projects that are out, are in the cooker. And one of them is what I call master keys for martial arts. And master keys is a term that I hijacked from Dr. John Latourette. And, John and I see eye to eye on a number of things, but he came up with the term. But if you looked at certain key aspects that can benefit and make your own art even that much better, you just take one aspect. Let's say, just for fits and giggles, structure. Okay, where does structure fit in in various aspects? Okay, here. Okay, and then you have other master keys, etc. Okay, this will be a book and video project, and it will apply for your striking arts, like your karate and that sort of thing, as well as your weapon arts as far as harness. Another one is, free sparring for seniors. Gosh, it was 3 years ago, somewhere right around there. I decided to fight in a tournament, and so here I am. 4 years ago, here I am, almost 65, and I'm going to fight in the 18 to 35 division. My youngest opponent is 40 years younger than me. So it's like, okay, let's put your feet to the fire. And I acquitted myself very well. I didn't win the division. I'll be really honest about that. But I acquitted myself very well. And I proved that, you don't have to be a young buck to be able to, get in there and spar and so forth. So anyway, this will be a video on how to learn how to free spar, how to develop your free sparring when you no longer have the youthful attributes. Now, another one,
that one's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm really pleased with it. And then another one is, there's a course that I run in my school that I call Battlefield Jiu-Jitsu. Now, if one does their study, okay, oh yeah, I see the look on your face. Oh yeah, if one does their historical study, you'll find that the unarmed art was kind of down the tier of arts that one did in medieval Japan. You actually had fireworks, boom, boom. You had bow and arrow, you had spear. Then you came down to swords. Then you came down to unarmed arts. Okay, so if one looks at the concept of battlefield jiu-jitsu, okay, you finally have your hand-to-hand and you have armor. Okay, if you're bulked up in all this armor that's going to keep you from getting hacked and stabbed, okay, it has mass to it. You throw the person down, what have you got? You have a human turtle. Okay, throw down, okay, get your weapon, stab the guy. So when you look at battlefield jiu-jitsu, A, simplicity, B, the ground is your last punch. The ground is your last fist. Okay, so we're going back to the ancient concept of jiu-jitsu, not BJJ in modern times. Okay, grappling, submitting, etc. No, we're talking about honest to Pete, self-defense without any of the yip yap. I mean, I have nothing against BJJ guys. You get on the ground with them, you had better learn how to pray, because these guys, even the weenies are awesome. Weenies are awesome. But I also go by the Kelly Warden viewpoint of, let's hope the person is not carrying a boot knife. Because you get grappling, you pull out that boot knife and you start shanking the person. Okay, we have the difference between combative sport and then on the street combat. Now, in battlefield jiu-jitsu, okay, where's the battlefield? The street. The street is awfully hard. You throw somebody down, wham, okay, that's like your last punch. The pavement becomes your last punch. So the battlefield jiu-jitsu course is a very finite course. It deals in street defense. It comes from a jiu-jitsu concept. Am I a jiu-jitsu man? No. But, one can have that concept, and the techniques are all commonplace these days anyway. So that's another project that I've got. And when I finish with those, I've always found that once one door closes, another one opens and something else comes up. And so that's what happens, I guess, when you're a warrior scholar. So those projects are coming, and who knows what will come after that. So there you go.
Right on. Okay. Well, if you guys have hung out this long, please like, share, subscribe, all those really nifty, interesting things that everybody says here. I'll even throw up a little scroll at the bottom so that reminds you. Next week, I will have, let's see, what's his name? I will have Young Smith. He's a gentleman in Jack Hills, Florida. He'll be on 10 a.m. So tune in then. Until then, please, everyone, be safe, train hard, and thank you, SuperDan.
You betcha.
And we'll see everybody around.
Okie dokie. Over and out.